Okay, for the test, you need to know domain and range from a picture. You need to know domain algebraically. I don't really want to read all these to you. If you want to, review this, you can always go back and watch this video that I'm going to post. So here's the list, and I'm going to do each one of them for you one at a time here. So let's talk about domain and range from a picture. If I give you a picture like this, or you have to figure out what the picture is, you should be able to say the domain like, oh yeah, that's easy. And you should be able to say the range too. This one's y equals square root of x, just the basic one. So, what's the domain? What? Come on, say it. 0 to infinity, good. Because it starts here and it goes forever that way, 0 to infinity. Okay, range is about up and down. Well, how low does it go? 0 to how high will it go? All right, so 0 to infinity. That's not the same as negative infinity, positive infinity. Okay, next one, domain and range from a one that you have to figure out the picture. You have to have all 12 of those ones memorized, but realistically, we're not going to give you like super complicated ones like the logistic function, I mean, that you've never even really seen before. But you'll have to be able to take stuff like this and say, okay, I know what that looks like, and then tell me the range of that. All right, so right now, would you please make a quick sketch of that and figure out the range of it. Yes, ma'am. This is 1430. Is it on the list? Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. All right, I'm back from that little break there. Here is a problem, and I was asking you what the range of it was. You need to make a little sketch for yourself and figure out what the range would be. Once you have your little sketch, and if you know 1 over x function starts off looking like this, that's all you really need to know to figure out the range. Okay, so move the little sketch. I'll pause for a second while you work on that. Okay, so here's what you should have done. You should have moved it to the left 3. Do you get how that means to move to the left? Because of the plus 3. Now, is that even really going to affect the range? Nope, it really isn't. But what's going to affect the range is the up 8 part. That plus 8 means up 8. So this needs to move up 8. All right? Now, the range is about up and down. Does it effortlessly flow from negative to positive without ever lifting the pencil? No, it's got an issue in between. It goes from negative infinity to positive infinity, but something in between doesn't work. And now it used to be 0, but now it moved up. So now the issue is at 8. And therefore, you would say that if you want to make a number line for it, its range would be everything works except 8. So here's 8. Doesn't work. So you could write it like that as a number line, or you'd say negative infinity to 8, union with 8 to infinity. That's the official way to write it, the way you'd want to write it on the test. Raise your hand if you got that one right. Okay, good. So that's range based on a picture. That's one of the easy things. Let's start talking about some of the hard things. Domain algebraically. So if you've got this, you've got 3 important numbers to put on the number line. Then you got to test around them. Give it a shot. Remember, this one always gets set greater than or equal to 0, and these are not equal to 0. Okay, I'm back from the little break there, and here are the answers. So you're going to be doing 3 little things. X plus 5 greater than or equal to 0. X greater than or equal to negative 5. So that's an important spot. Here's an important spot. X cannot be negative 1. And here's the last important spot. X cannot be 3. And then those are my 3 important spots. And then almost everybody will get that part right. But then it'll be a tragic number of people will screw up from there. So how many of you have the right points? Raise your hand if you did. Okay, good. So then, here's the important part then. These don't work, so they're empty spots. This does work because it says or equal to. Another way to think of it is if you put the 5 in, or the negative 5 in here, it's okay if it comes out to be a 0 because it's on top. Just can't have zeros on the bottom. All right, then I'm going to test the regions. Like I'm going to test 6. I'm going to put in a 6 here. Does it crash? No. Does it crash? No. Does it crash? No. So it works. Next I would test between negative 1 and 3. My favorite thing is in there, 0. So this makes this 5 and 1 and negative 3, and that doesn't make anything crash. Yay, works in there. Next part is negative 4 or negative 3 or something. I'm going to put in negative 3 here. Top doesn't crash because it's not negative underneath the root. Negative 3 here, that's fine. Negative 3, that's a little weird, but it turns out to be negative 6, so that's no big deal. It works. Holy cow, it's working everywhere. Now I'm going to try one more spot. We had negative 6. I'll put in a negative 6, and right away I'll notice, at least I hope you notice, that negative 6 plus 5 would crashville right away. So that's out. So, final answers. It works in 3 little spots. From here to here, which is from negative 5 to 1, bracket, parenthesis, union with negative 1 to 3, union with 3 to infinity. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Awesome. Then you got domain. Now let's talk about some of your harder kind of questions. That was one of your harder kind of questions, but hardest, I'd say, that we learned is probably that odd, even thing. Okay, so how do you tell if something's odd or even? Well, first of all, if I were going to complete this and make it even, would I go like the green one or would I go like the black one? The green one makes it even symmetry, and therefore it would be an even function. If I did the black one, it would make it what? Odd symmetry. Because remember this, it goes through the origin and comes out the other side, and there'll be another point over there. Okay, that's how you can tell if it's odd. All right, one I told you the other day of those 12 functions, I told you one of them wrong, and it was the integer function, and it was really hard to tell whether they had a, it was like a line with an empty spot, a line with an empty spot, a line with an empty spot. I told you that that was an odd one. It is not odd. When I got to look at a better picture of it, when you draw through the origin, there was nothing on the other side. Well, I told you it was neither? Oh, good. I screwed up in the next hour then. Okay, sorry. This is a neither. The step function's a neither because it doesn't have odd symmetry after all. I thought it did. It did not. Okay. In this class, apparently, I was right all along. Okay, so let's go back to proving odd and even then if you don't have a picture. If you don't have a picture, what you got to do is this. Okay? That's the odd formula. Write it down. And then test and see. With a T line like this, you're making like a little T chart. Test and see if this is an odd function. So remember, you got to drop negative x into the function. Lots of algebra to grind out. And it won't be, the problems kids will be grinding out the algebra. That's why we were working so hard at the beginning of the year to get you brushed up on your algebra stuff, because that's the kind of stuff that will keep coming back to haunt you. My advice on this kind is to put the same function except put an empty spot where the variable is. And then you drop in your negative x inside that parentheses. Really, this is a good idea. You put an empty parenthesis here. Now I'm going to drop in a negative x, and now at least you got it all set up correctly. Negative x cubed, the negative is going to be negative times negative times negative, which makes negative x cubed minus 2x. And there's nothing else I can do on that. I'm done. Now I move to the other side. On this side, I put a negative and a big parenthesis. And what do I drop in there? The function, x cubed plus 2x. Then I multiply that negative out. Negative x cubed, and the negative gets distributed to that over the plus sign, and I'd have negative 2x. And are these exactly the same as each other? What do we just prove then? It is odd. Now to prove that it's odd, you're gonna, if you just have the answer odd on your paper, and you haven't got this other part, you haven't got two things that are actually equal to each other, you will not get credit. You have to have it, phone, my desk. You have to have it where it's exactly equal to each other on both sides. That's the point of a proof, is you got to have the exact same thing on both sides, and they have to actually be equal. Okay? Just kind of giving you a tip on that, because some of you might get the right answer that it's odd, but not have proved it, and you won't get the credit. Okay, so don't just think, oh, I can tell this one's probably even. Write down even, you don't get the credit. You have to have the proof. Okay, what's the rule for evens? F of negative x equals what? F of x. I want you to prove something's even now. X squared plus 2x. Let's see if that's even. See if that is an even function. Okay, I'm back from a little break there, and this one is empty spot squared plus 2 empty spot. Now I'm going to drop in negative x, and I find that the negative, since it's in parentheses, see, I keep saying those are important. This is one of those times, because if it wasn't in parentheses, then this would already be done. It'd be negative x squared, but it's in parentheses. So the negative times negative will have to happen, so therefore it's going to be positive x squared. And then this 2 times negative x makes minus 2x. Okay. Now on the other side, plain f of x. Well, that's awesome. I just have to take this up here and drop it in right there. So I have x squared plus 2x. Is that the exact same thing as that? And therefore you say not even. Have I proven then that it's odd? No. You have to go through the whole proof. And this is another thing that kids will screw up. You think, okay, it's probably neither. I agree, it's probably neither. But if you leave it that way, you have not proved that it's a neither. You have to actually go through the odd rule and prove the same thing we did on the last screen, that it comes out to not equal, and therefore it won't be odd. And then you've proven it's neither. You have to prove it's not even, and it's not odd. All right. Next kind I want to talk to you about is, let's talk about if this kind of symmetry, if I want it to be odd, and this point was at 5, comma 2, rewrite that. If that's at 5, comma 2, and it was truly odd, what point would have to be on the blue line? If this is really odd, what point would have to be there? We know there'd have to be a point down here that goes with it, right? So we go, and if you just think it through, what would that be? Okay, so there's something, comma something, and I've heard negative 5, comma negative 2. Now I'm going to double check that. Does it make sense to go 5 this way compared to 5 that way? Yep, that makes sense. And then negative 2 down 2, whereas this one was up 2. So yeah, that's right. Any questions on that? Okay. Next, let's talk about if you had the this complicated one. Wait a minute. There we go. What would its vertical and horizontal asymptotes be? Remember that? The vertical asymptotes, I'm going to do a quick reminder for you, so that, because I saw a lot of blank stares at that moment. A lot of deers in the headlights. So, unless you're riding a motorcycle, in which case it's headlight. But anyway, so this is the verticals are x's, or is it the horizontals that are x's? I have a way to remember it. The vertical asymptotes. You see what I'm doing here? The vertical asymptotes and the horizontal asymptotes. Get what I'm trying to go for there? That the x ones are the vertical asymptotes. The vertical asymptotes are x things. And the horizontal ones are y ones, and so they're y equals things. And remember that Bob tells us why. Bob tells us why, because it's either bigger on top or bigger on bottom. That's the Bob one. or it's same on both. And if it's bigger on top, y equals none. There aren't any y ones. And if it's a bob, it's y equals 0. And if it's a sob, it's a y equals a ratio. So is this one. Bigger on top, bigger on bottom, or same on both? Bigger on the bottom because it's degree 2 on the bottom. So it's a bob, so it's a y equals 0. This guy's asymptote would be at y equals 0. Done. Now how about the vertical asymptotes, the x ones? The x ones are the ones that make the bottom 0. But I can't tell what makes the bottom 0. Wouldn't it be nice if this was like written like one of these? So you can do that. Go ahead, factor that. And then figure out what the vertical asymptotes are. They're the things that make the thing crash. Things that make the function crash. Is it x plus 2 and x plus 1? Okay. How do I know that for sure? Because I do firsts, x squared, outside and inside, plus 3x, and lasts, plus 2. And that's the same thing I had. Cool. All right, so now I've got two things that would crash it. Negative 2 would crash it, and 1 would crash it. So those are my x equals things. X equals negative 2, and also x equals negative 1. Not 0. Because if I put in a 0, it won't make this crash. 0 is okay. I just don't want the denominator to turn into 0, so I can't use negative 2 and I can't use 1. So those are asymptotes. All right, I'm going to give you one more like that. I did that one for you. See if you can handle this one. X plus 5 over x squared plus 5x plus 4. And I want to know what are the verticals asymptotes. Remember? Those are the vertical asymptotes. And the horizontal asymptotes. And pause while you work on. Okay, remember to keep them straight. The verticals are the verticals. It has an x equals. Okay, so what's the x equal thing? You need to factor it to figure that out. Hopefully you got that factored pretty quick. X plus 4, x plus 1. So my two things that would crash this function are negative 4 and negative 1. And that makes them asymptotes. Negative 4 and x equals negative 1. And so many kids on the test are going to be asked for the vertical and horizontals, and they're going to put the y things here where they shouldn't, and they're going to put the x things here where they shouldn't. And if you can remember the verticals and the horizontals, you will keep from making that mistake. Okay, the horizontal ones are the horizontal ones, so they're y equals things. And who tells you why? Who tells you why? Who? Bob. And is this a bob? Yes. It is. If it's a bob, then it's a what? Y equals 0. Raise your hand if you had your asymptotes right. Okay, good. All right. Now, we have a, what if it was like this? Do you remember how to factor that? All I want is the x equals 1 on this. It's already, I know it's a bob. If it's a bob, it's y equals 0. But can you factor it? If you can't factor, probably shouldn't be in this class. You've got to know how to factor. It's huge. It's going to happen over and over and over and over again. If it's kind of hard to factor it, then what do? You look for something that's in all of them. Do you see something that's in all of them? 2. 2 comes out, and then you have x squared plus 2x plus 1. And then you can factor it for real. 2, and then 2 sets of parentheses, x plus 1, x plus 1. So if it's hard to factor, see if something will come out of everything. All right. Then it comes down to just negative 1. Do I have to say it twice? Nope. The answer is negative 1, and you can say another negative 1 if you want to. What is that thing again? That's a thing that will crash the function, and so it's a what? It's an asymptote. And is it a vertical or horizontal? It's a vertical. Yes. Yes. Correct. All right. One more thing to factor. How do you factor that? It's called difference of squares. Super important. What's that? X minus 4 and x plus 4. Yes. All right. Next kind. Let's say that you were given a domain. So that you need to find the domain of this one, where it's x plus 2 over x squared minus 36. Oh, and that's going to be underneath the square root. Give that one a try. This is domain now. Then, after you found the domain, you know what? Domain will take you forever. Let's just do verticals and horizontals on this. If you already started, you already got your verticals. So I didn't waste your time. Kid asked, do I really need to do the top if I'm not doing the domain? Now, that would matter in the domain, but it doesn't matter for this problem. It doesn't matter for the verticals and the horizontals. The verticals can only come from here. Those tell you your verticals. And hopefully you caught on that you're supposed to be able to factor that. So this is x plus 6, x minus 6. And this on the top, again, I told you, in this kind of a problem, top doesn't matter because we're not doing domain. So what crashes this thing? Negative 6 and 6. So x equals negative 6. It crashes it, so it's an asymptote. And x equals positive 6. It would crash it, so it's an asymptote. And did I put it in the right spot? I would always check myself. Vertical is the zertical, which is the x. Good, I did that right. And then who tells you the horizontal ones, the y? Who tells you y? Bob tells you y. And is this a Bob? Yes, it is. So there it's very bigger on bottom, and therefore it's y equals 0. Let's just take one where it's not a Bob. X squared plus 3x plus 1 over x squared minus 49. Okay, is this bigger on bottom, bigger on top, or same on both? Same on both, and therefore it's, what's the answer? Y equals what? It's a ratio. So the leading is the first one, the one that goes on the biggest degree. Okay, so 1 and 1, so it's a 1 over 1. So y equals 1. It's a ratio of the lead coefficients. All right. I'll give you a trick one. I think I know what you're thinking of. 6x squared over 5 minus x squared. Okay, would you agree it's the same on both? So it's got to be a ratio. So it's y equals, well, 6 over, what would it be on the bottom? Negative 1, because that's the number that's on the lead coefficient. It's just that it's been rearranged. The biggest degree, that one is the lead coefficient. So, or that one's the lead variable, so this is the lead coefficient. So negative 1, so final answer, y equals negative 6. How many of you would have caught that? A lot of you wouldn't have caught that. Let's try it again then. Y equals 9x squared over 4 minus x squared. Do you agree it's the same on both? So you'd know it's a ratio. Tell me, don't say it right on your paper, what you think the ratio would be then. Y equals what? Okay, it's y equals the lead coefficients. That's the lead one, and that's the lead one. And there's no number there. Put a 1 there. 9 over -1, -9. Raise your hand if you had it right. Okay, good. Any questions now? Yes?
What happens if it's bigger on top?
Okay, bigger on top is easy. There's no bots. So anytime it's bigger on top, like that, if it's bigger on top, the answer is none. There are none of those kind of asymptotes. So y equals none.
But there still could be vertical asymptotes, but there's no horizontal.
No horizontal ones, correct. Yep. No, I'm just teasing you. You said it right. I'm just trying to pound it into your brain so you don't screw that up tomorrow. I hate that. Kids have everything right, and then they just write their asymptotes in the wrong spot. They put the x ones where they're supposed to put the y ones. And this will keep you from doing that. Okay. Oh, we're getting close. I think I've covered pretty much everything you need to know for this test, so I'm going to give you your review now. And it's only one side of a piece of paper, smallish. I strongly encourage you to do it all and check it all, because the answer's there. They're waiting for you to come and visit them tonight. I recommend it highly. Some of you guys really have to dig deep if you're going to do well in this class. You know, a lot of you, if you don't study, can pull off the C. Most of you will get a C, no problem. But the question is if you want to get the A or the B, because that's what's going to take the studying. Most of you can survive with a C, but do you want that on your GPA? Do you want that when the colleges are looking at you deciding whether or not we want to take this kid? They took pre-calc and they got C's. That's not a great thing to have on your resume. Okay, so tonight is one of those nights where you make those kind of decisions. I encourage you to study.